Hockey heads, degenerate gamblers, and fantasy fanatics, stand up, unite. This is your show. It's the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast, and our pre-draft coverage rolls on into the top 5 left wingers in the game that you need on your squad. Thank you so much for joining us for the Tuesday episode. Let's tap in and let's get this paper.
You're Locked On Fantasy Hockey, your daily podcast on fantasy hockey.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You heard the music and you know what time it is. It's time for your daily source for fantasy hockey news and soon to be daily betting breakdowns. It's the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast, and I'm joined, as always, by my distinguished co-host, Mr. Steele Roden. On this side of the microphone, it's your boy, Big Flip Livingstone. Shout out to the everydayers. You know what it is. We couldn't be doing this show without everyone's support out there, so thank you so much for making us your first listen every single day. The puck is going to drop on this season, I promise you. And we will have you covered all season long with everything that you need to make sure that you are on the top of the table in your fantasy hockey league. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet and get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Over to you in a hot second, Mr. Roden, to kick off this top 5 left wing edition. Look, a lot of our breakdowns, there's been similarities, there's been differences. I think for the most part, this top 5 is going to be very, very similar, especially at the top end. I think it probably is the exact same. These are studs, though. And somehow, I put this out there a lot, if you're able to nab 2 of these left wingers somehow, especially some of these names in the top 5, you are going to be at the top of the table in your league. So, over to you, my friend. Who you got at number 5? I know our last list was somewhat different, so I think I got a guy a little higher than you did. However, we're here. It's Tuesday. NHL hockey is coming, baby.
Yeah, it feels like it's been weeks since we last talked about this positional left wing top 10 going into this season, but it's only been a few days. Can't stress enough how important it is to have some of these top left wingers, some of these wingers in general, because they are a hot commodity in your fantasy leagues. And these are some of the best names in the National Hockey League right now. And I've talked very highly about this guy who I have coming in at the number 5 position and how I feel about this team overall going into the 2024-25 season. Filip Forsberg, for me, comes in at number 5. He does make the top 5. I know a lot of people see a little bit of a regression, and obviously with players like Steven Stamkos and Jonathan Marchessault coming into the mix, maybe that takes away from his value of what he can do offensively that we've seen over the last couple of years. But I'm buying into the Nashville Predators even more with the likes of Marchessault and Stamkos in the mix. I mean, this was a top 10 team in goals for last season with Filip Forsberg leading the way. You know, guys like Ryan O'Reilly and Gustav Nyquist backing him up. Now you have Stamkos and Marchessault in the top 6 to help him out offensively, to continue growing that goal-scoring offensive capabilities of this Nashville Predators team. Again, they were top 10 in goals for last year, and this is 2 out of the last 3 seasons that Forsberg has put up 40-plus goal seasons. I know there is definitely some major concern with this player when it comes to his overall health. This is, this last year, 2023, was the first season in 8 years that he's played a full 82-game season. So obviously major concern if you go down that route. But I think, again, when you bring in this mix of skill with the players that I just mentioned, along with Roman Josi, who's still one of the best quarterbacking defensemen in the league, Forsberg's value remains high for me. He's healthy. He played the full 82 games, like I said, but 2 out of the last 3 seasons, 40-plus goals, 94 career high. I love this player a lot. He's one of the top left wingers when he stays healthy and he's in the game. I see, again, a lot going on for this Nashville team, and I'm buying into them. So Forsberg, number 5 for me.
I appreciate that you covered the angle that is obviously out there about this player right now, and it's something that you have to consider when you do bring in the level of talent that they did. It doesn't necessarily always mean positive things for every single player. Does it most of the time? Yes. And I appreciate you just saying it doesn't matter. You're buying into it, and that's fine because he's actually been one of those players that I've come on this show, said that you should sell high on this guy, and he just made me look wrong at multiple points of last season. So you mentioned also their goal scoring ability, finishing 10th in the NHL last season, but somehow this is a team that struggled on the power play a little bit, Steele. Finished outside the top half in power play proficiency, 21.6% the power play clicked at. That's worse than the Utah Yeti, former Arizona Coyotes, however you want to call them. I'll spit it out. This is a squad that now, if you were buying into Filip Forsberg before, you can't help but feel that in Cats leagues, power play points, he's going to bring it even more so because they just added a whole other wrinkle of lethal offensive punch. So I'm with you, Adam, at 5. I had him at 6. I don't know where you had RoboCop. Maybe you had him at 6. You had him at 6 or 7, I think. Even if you didn't, he is my guy this year. And I'll explain why. Number 1, shout out to the Niagara Ice Dogs. You know, I stick to my guns on that one. He had a regression season last year, Steele, and maybe this falls more back into the realm of what we expect from RoboCop, 85 to 90 points instead of 109 from the year before. However, Wyatt Johnson going to get a look on that top right side with Rupe Hintz and Jason Robertson. That is going to be a dangerous trio to handle, especially when we know, look at what happened when Hintz came back in the postseason last year. Hattie for RoboCop. Those two play well together. Now throw me in a little young stud on the right wing. That's going to be a very, very hard top line to deal with. So that's what I'm reading into. As much as you're buying in and reading into the Nashville angles, we know this Dallas Stars team is going to be back there at the top of the league across the board. So RoboCop comes in for me at number 5 because of the reasons that I'm reading into, Steele, although I don't hate that you got Filip Forsberg at your 5 spot.
Two very well-rounded left wingers with those two players right there. And this guy who you mentioned before comes in at number 4. Matthew Tkachuk comes in at the 4 position for me. Jason Robertson did come in at 7. Again, just because of where I see the Dallas Stars, but those are two very dangerous teams in the Western Conference. But going back out east, I have Matthew Tkachuk at number 4. One of the most multi-dimensional players, dynamic guys you'll see in the National Hockey League right now. I mean, this guy has Brad Marchand-esque type of aura all over him. One of those guys you hate playing against, but if he's on your team, he is amazing to play with. There's so many different areas of his game that stands out for me. Obviously, the physicality, the grittiness that he brings onto the ice every single time he's out there. Number 2, the playmaking and the vision that this guy has in the offensive zone puts him up there as, again, one of the top playmakers in the National Hockey League over the last couple of seasons. 3 straight seasons of 60-plus assist years, plus obviously those 2 back-to-back years of 40-plus goals puts him at a superstar level. Obviously, a little bit of a dip in the goal area, in the goal categories last year with 26. I think he can get back up to 30, 35, potentially finish somewhere with 95 points for the Florida Panthers. But he's a banger league beauty as well. Another aspect of his game, 88 penalty minutes, 151 hits last year, over 275 plus shots as well. So he's very dynamic in all the categories you're looking for. One of the best left wingers in the game right now. I believe he also does have dual eligibility in Yahoo Fantasy League. So that's a plus, again, of where his value goes going into this season. Very strong player. Top 6 in the Florida Panthers. Carter Verhaeghe, your boy as well. Sam Reinhart, Barkov. These are all the guys that he gets to play with and that get to play with him. Matthew Tkachuk makes the top 5 and comes in at number 4.
Number 4 for me, too. The Florida Panthers, obviously one of the best teams in the NHL over the last handful of seasons. However, they just don't lose many stick battles, many puck battles. They are an efficient, neat, and tidy team, and that allows a player like Matthew Tkachuk to really do his thing. And this team gets its swagger from Matthew Tkachuk. When he goes, this team goes, and they're very hard to beat. I'll talk a little bit more about Matthew Tkachuk after the break, along with the rest of our top 5. Left wingers in the fantasy game. Steele and I are here Monday through Friday, all the way until the Stanley Cup is lifted, Steele. I hope you're ready, pal. Buckle up. It's about to get real serious up in here. Shout out to everyone interested in our listener leagues. We're going to get that going very soon as well. Steele will have more details for y'all as the rest of the episode unfolds. However, today's episode is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel Sportsbook. NFL fans, you hear me? The start of this season can bring you a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. When you get the hunch in the middle of the game, check out the latest stats, view the live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you're already placing your bets. Get started with a $200 bonus bet guarantee when you place your first $5 wager. That's FanDuel.com.
And thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. Continue to hit the subscribe button, the follow button, leave a 5-star review. We appreciate all that love and support you show us. Monday through Friday, 7 o'clock in the morning is when you can find our episodes.
Yes, sir.
Again, everything you need to know about the Fantasy Hockey Listener Leagues. We have finalized everything. The leagues have been set. We do have all 16 players or 16 teams joined and ready to rumble going into this upcoming year. So thank you again so much for everyone who wanted to join, who showed interest in both of our fantasy leagues. But moving forward, they have been finalized. So again, just want to give you a shout out for everyone who's been supporting the podcast over the years and over the summer and showed interest for this upcoming season. Flip, over to you, my friend. Continue your thought process on Matthew Tkachuk as one of the top 5 left wingers in the game.
Just very quickly, and I don't think this is a category that any fantasy GM or any hockey fan really likes, plus minus, but sometimes in cat leagues, it's in there. And just looking at Matthew Tkachuk's stats over the last couple of seasons, this is a guy at plus 100 or more. So that's just another little cherry on the top for a player in Matthew Tkachuk that when you look at 88 points after back-to-back triple-digit points, you want to call it a regression. I think this is one of those few cases, Steele, that I'm not going to call it a regression. When his team, you put up 88 points and won the cup, I'm fine with it. And if he returns to 88 points, 90 points, and 151 hits and everything else he does, I'm also fine with it. And he still deserves to be at number 4. So I just wanted to close it off at that, though. Back over to you, my friend. Number 3, any other takes on Matthew Tkachuk? I'm good with any way you want to go.
Look, I could see him being a little bit higher on this left winger list as well. I just value 3 more guys in front of Matthew Tkachuk.
100%.
I think both of us having him at number 4 is exactly where he should be. And such a dynamic player. But at number 3, I have to go with my boy Kirill Kaprizov. He could be at number 2 as well, but again, peripherally, I do like another Tkachuk a little bit better than Kirill Kaprizov, which is saying much.
I respect
Kirill
that.
Kaprizov is one of the most complete players in the National Hockey League as well. He skates so well. He's dangerous with the puck in the offensive zone. I mean, just looking at what he's done over the last 3 seasons, 3 straight years of 40-plus goal seasons for the Minnesota Wild. And like I said, moves the puck well. He skates well. He has a shot that is very dangerous and seems to find its way to the back of the net almost every single time. A career 16.3 shooting percentage for this player. He's dangerous in all areas of the game. He's only 5'10", but he's over 200 pounds and just very tough to get off the puck. Very durable guy, very big and bulky and strong when it comes into those different aspects of the game. But he just fills out all those peripherals I'm looking for as well. Again, with where he is and the market he plays for, the fact that he's continuously able to put up 40 goal seasons, 96 points, 108 points 3 years ago for a career high, and not have a lot to work with around him. Obviously, we love Matt Boldy. We love Zuccarello's playmaking ability. We love Joel Eriksson-Ek. But we've talked about this. This can be a very average team when you watch them, and they can go on very cold. They can go very cold on a very consistent streak. So for me, the fact that he's able to do this without guys, when we talk about some of the best players in the league, Connor McDavid, he has Leon Draisaitl, Austin Matthews, he has Nylander and Marner. McKinnon has Rantanen and Makar.
Great point.
Kirill Kaprizov doesn't have those type of players to work with. Maybe he can get there with guys like Matt Boldy, with Brock Faber, but he's able to do this by himself on a year in, year out basis. One of the best left wingers in the game, right when he came into the National Hockey League as well. again, dynamic. Love this guy. Love the Minnesota Wild. Makes it to the top 3.
Let's be clear on this one, Steele. I have Brady Tkachuk at 3, Killer Bill at 2.
Yeah.
It depends on the format
Yes.
because that's one of those ones where I think I've thrown out interchangeable. I don't think they're interchangeable if you have a banger league. Then I would agree with you. Brady Tkachuk, I think, deserves to be at number 2, and we know who's at number 1, and we'll talk about that. But when it comes to, and I'll focus on Kaprizov, and then we can get into Brady or however you like it. Number 1, Matt Boldy was hurt in practice. I don't know if you saw that. He's week to week. They're saying that he should be ready for the season. But this is the kind of thing that as a fantasy hockey GM headed into fantasy draft season, look, we're all busy. We all have jobs, families, and lives. But if you can spend first 30 minutes on the Locked On Fantasy Hockey podcast, number 1, and then a little bit of time digging into the trenches on some research, this is going to reveal some angles that will help you properly assess players like Kill Bill. And look, Steele, Kaprizov, in the games played that he's also done, right? 67 games played 2 years ago, had 40 goals. Last year, 75 games played, 46. I want to see what he can do now in his prime with a full 82. So that's another one of those caveats that I don't even think we've seen the best from this player yet. And that's saying something considering how good he is with the puck on his tape. Brady Tkachuk comes in at 3 for me, Steele. Kaprizov at number 2. You hit the nail on the head, though. Who steps up for this Minnesota team? Someone is going to have to carry the offensive load other than our boy here, because I just had that up. And this is a club that perennially, last year, Steele, 21st in the NHL in scoring. That's not going to be nearly good enough when you're in a division with a squad, 2 of them, like the Colorado Avalanche and Dallas Stars. That's just not going to be good enough in terms of offensive output. So someone's got to step it up, and then I think Kill Bill's numbers could go up even more. So I got Brady at 3, Kill Bill at number 2. I just love both of these players. If somehow you can manage to get them both, which is probably highly unlikely, you might as well just collect the money from your fellow GMs and thank us later.
If you're able to somehow get Kirill Kaprizov and Brady Tkachuk, that would be astronomical. That's not heard of, because none of those players are slipping that far down the board. I do have Brady Tkachuk at the number 2 position. Again, maybe interchangeable right now, but the offensive upside with Kirill Kaprizov maybe puts him a little bit higher in some formats. For me, you know how I feel about the peripheral categories. You know how I feel about the Banger League beauty and Brady Tkachuk. 134 penalty minutes, 3 straight seasons of over 245 hits for the last 294 hits this last year. 3 straight seasons of 30-plus goals as well. Career high 83 points 2 seasons ago. I mean, when we talk about a guy who still hasn't scratched the surface as well, I don't think Brady Tkachuk has scratched the surface either. He has a lot more to give and a lot more to go. And with the way the Ottawa Senators are shaping and forming over in this next couple of years, again, we've kind of been talking about it for the last season or 2. Maybe we were a little too early on them, but we like Tim Stützle and what he brings. Claude Giroux's best years might be behind him, but he has a lot left in the tank. We love Drake Batherson. I know you love Drake Batherson.
Yes, I do.
Josh Norris, obviously some injury concern, but when he's in there, we like the potential that he brings as well.
Yeah,
Shane Pinto in the mix. There's a lot like Jake Sanderson on the blue line. So we like
now they
this
got a
team.
goalie too.
We like this team. We like where they're headed. They've got a goaltender who you can actually put some confidence and have some consistency with in Linus Ullmark. Brady Tkachuk, though, he does it all for this team. Like I said, Banger League beauty, over 100-plus penalty minutes, over 250 hits, 30-plus goal seasons for 3 straight years. I think he can get to 40 goals with the way this team is shaping out and forming right now. Brady Tkachuk, 90 points is something that I'm looking for potentially out of this player, either this year or the next season. He's dynamic. He's an offensive beast. He's always going to get into your face and always do everything to get under your skin and give his boys the best opportunity to win. He's so dynamic in all areas of the game. Brady Tkachuk for me, again, because I love those peripherals. And it's hard to say that because I love Kirill Kaprizov, but
it's just a love fest right now.
It's a love fest right now.
It's a love fest. And that's okay, Steele,
Yeah,
because
it
you
is.
should love these players. And let's get to break. I'll talk about Brady Tkachuk quick, and then let's talk about our boy in the bakery, Mr. Breadman, coming off a special season. Let me just say this, though. Brady Tkachuk is a gamer. And
Yes.
when it's on and when it means the most, he carries this team. And he's only, he's coming into year 25 years old in this season. I agree with you. I'm excited to see what he does now with all those distractions that the Ottawa Senators had to deal with last year. Done. Let's see what happens. Let's see what happens with the rest of today's episode. I'm ready to go for this double banger ad read. Let's get it.
Maybe not enough love for the guy who we're going to talk about at the
Perhaps.
number one position. We're going to have to show him a little bit more love than what he's got in that last season. But we'll get there after the break and so much more later in this week on the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast. This episode is brought to you by Indeed. We're driven by the search for better, but when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. If you need to hire, you need Indeed. Indeed is your matching and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors. Ditch the busy work. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. 93% of employers agree Indeed delivers the highest quality matches compared to other job sites, according to a recent Indeed survey. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your job more visibility at Indeed.com/lockedon. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed through this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed. This episode is also brought to you by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. The goal is simple. All you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings pour in all season long. It's the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. You can win 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. Josh Allen over 250 plus passing yards, Jamar Chase over 2 touchdowns. The possibilities are endless. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code LOCKEDONNHL and get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code LOCKEDONNHL to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive this bonus. It's guaranteed. Prize Picks, run your game. And thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. Continue to hit the subscribe button, the follow button, leave a 5-star review. We appreciate all that love and support you've been showing us all summer long, heading into the fall and heading into the fantasy hockey season.
It's a fact.
Flip. We've shown a lot of love. We've shown a lot of love to these last 2 players over, actually every player we've been talking about in these top 10 lists.
Yeah.
One of the guys that I feel hasn't been given enough love from the hockey community, maybe, and especially maybe just us. We haven't talked about him quite enough, even though we are
unofficial
blue and white podcast over here. Artemi Panarin has to come in at the #1 position for left wingers going into this season. He is so good in the offensive zone, one of the best playmakers in the game. I'll throw it over to you first. And, just express why he comes in at #1.
Yeah, well, first and foremost, when you pop off for 120 points, 49 goals, and you're 32 years old, maybe you and I love to throw out the scratching the surface term. I'm not ready to go there with Breadman, but maybe he's just starting to unleash his full potential. And when you take a look at the New York Rangers, Steele, this is one of those players that everything adds up for me to invest in him. Power play, penalty kill, goaltending, blue line. This guy has the team for him to do his thing offensively. So all of those are reasons why he comes in at #1. And let's just be clear here, Steele. 120 points in today's NHL, and you're not playing with McKinnon or McDavid. To me, that's even more impressive. And let's also be clear, I'm not taking away anything from the Mika Zibanejads, Trocheks, or other players in the top 6 with the New York Rangers. This is Breadman, the straw that stirs the drink in New York, a team that, Steele, their third line, Will Cooley, Filip Forsberg, Capo Caco, That's more talent and more balance than most teams' second lines and some bad ones firsts. And that might be a bit of a stretch. This New York Rangers team, you and I have been on since the first couple of episodes that we spoke. We didn't even know each other yet, and we knew this Rangers team was going to be a force to be reckoned with. And last year's President's Trophy proved it. We don't need to talk about postseason shortcomings because that doesn't count into fantasy. So, all of those reasons are why Breadman comes in at number 1. And you know how I feel about guys like Vincent Trocheck, a breakout from Alexis Lafreniere. We talked about trios we really like, Steele, and I mentioned everything adds up to invest in this player. So does playing with Trocheck and Lafreniere headed into this season. Breadman's got to be the slam dunk number 1 left winger in the game.
I was just going to say, I know how you feel about Vincent Trocheck and Adam Fox, Igor Shesterkin. You know how I feel about Chris Kreider, Alexis Lafreniere, Mika Zibanejad. And everyone needs to know how we feel about Artemi Panarin because this is, you hit it on the nail right here. Cherry on top of the cake. 120 points in year 30 or at the age of 32. Like you said, it seems to be unleashing the full potential of what he's been able to do throughout his national hockey career. I mean, this guy went undrafted. This was a guy who started playing at the age of 24.
Won the Calder at 24.
Won the Calder, undrafted, started playing in the National Hockey League at the age of 24, just like Kirill Kaprizov as well. A guy who's been very durable throughout his career. 95 points in 69 games, 96 points in 75. And now these last 2 years hasn't missed a game. Went 92 back to back with 120 points, over 300 shots, 16.2 shooting percentage. Maybe there is a caveat with this player. It was the first time that we've seen him hit over 40 goals, even 45 plus goals in a year, close to 50 at 49 last year.
Crazy,
but also, we know he's one of the best playmakers in the game. He's able to find his teammates from the parking lot blindfolded if he really wanted to. Artemi Panarin, one of the most prolific guys in the game right now on the power play and over on that left wing side by the hash marks where we talk about where it's kind of like Ovechkin, Stamkos's office. It's also his office over there from time to time as well on the power play. Such a great player in the offensive zone. Obviously, you're not going to get the hits. You're not going to get the blocks. Doesn't matter. You're not looking for that with this player. He still comes in at number 1 as the best left winger going into this upcoming season. We're high on the blue shirts over here. I'm high on them when it comes to betting as well. I'll be talking about them when it comes to the Stanley Cup odds. Once again, by the way, 3 years in a row, but Artemi Panarin, number 1 on this list, number 1 potentially in our hearts right now too.
Hey, I love that you said that because I was going to say it too. So great minds think alike. Great left wingers align themselves for big seasons. Look, trying to say he's going to repeat 120.
Yeah.
That's just any player. It's bold aside from, the top 3 or 4 overall in the game. If there's anyone that can do it, it's this guy. And if there's any team that can support a player to do so, it's this one. So, at this point in our fantasy draft preparation, Steele, your boys be feeling a bit delirious over here. I feel like I've looked at you and I have looked at every single team. If you've missed it, Steele and I have broken down for you already. Top 5 fantasy players on every single NHL squad. We've broken down the top 10 players at every single position for y'all. And we've got a whole bunch more draft prep episodes teed up and ready to ride. Special guests, big time bets coming back. This is your daily source for fantasy hockey news. I don't just say it because it sounds good, y'all. You got to be tapped into the show. Steele and I have you all season long.
It sounds good, and it's true. Best of both worlds. Thank you for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Pod your first listen every single day. For your second listen, please go check out the Locked On NHL podcast, where the season never ends, providing national expertise with a local perspective. You can find the link in the description below, so you don't even have to go search for it. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Once again, from both Flip and I, we wish you good luck with your bets this fall. We wish you good luck with your drafts this upcoming weekend, and we shall see you back here again tomorrow.
Peace.